Janno Lieber has to find a way to make the MTA solvent. How will he do it? That's the question number one, and it is the number one question on the minds of everybody who takes mass transit. Absolutely. Will there be a fare hike? Will there be a toll hike? And if so, how much? So, ball's in your court.
Well, here's the situation. Everybody gets it. We're down about a third of our riders. That's blown a $2 billion hole in the MTA's budget. We are taking major actions to save money on our own. We're restructuring our debt. So we're getting the deficit down from $2.5 billion to like $1.2 billion. But that last $1.2 billion, we need our friends in Washington, Albany, and City Hall to help us solve it. A moderate fare hike, the restoration of these moderate slow fare hikes we used to have, may be part of it. But here's the important point, Marcia, and I don't want it to be missed. The reason I'm calling on Washington, Albany, and City Hall is I don't think it's fair if working class and middle class New Yorkers who have been riding the train right through COVID, and we're up to 90% of pre-COVID ridership, to get less service or to get super high fares because more affluent New Yorkers ain't riding and remote working. That's the bottom line for me.
But so here's the thing. What are you going to ask Albany and Washington to do? I mean, you're looking at a revenue, you want a new revenue stream, it seems. And given the fact that Albany has its own fiscal problems, it looks like it's going to be a new tax or a new something. And already the MTA has a lot of taxes and a lot of other things that go into help the fare, including, you know, 0.25% of the sales tax goes to the MTA. The mortgage recording tax, there's a drop whenever you take a car, a Uber or a taxi, the MTA gets a fee. So what kinds of things can Albany do for you if they don't have the money to give it to you directly? I mean, are we talking about a millionaire's tax, a commuter tax? What a tax on local businesses? What's in your head?
No, but listen, our job is not to be prescriptive. We're not telling them exactly how to accomplish it. What we're saying is that budgets equal priorities. Your priorities are reflected in your budget, and MTA service is like air and water to New Yorkers. It is what we need to survive. And when you're this essential, and we're as essential as police, as fire, as sanitation, you ought to invest in government collectively, state, city, federal, ought to invest in it and solve this problem, because it's not fair if New Yorkers who are depending on MTA mass transit to get to work, to education, health care, get less service because affluent New Yorkers are remote working. That doesn't make sense.
So let's talk dollars and cents. You said that the remaining budget gap is about a little over $1 billion, right?
Yes.
So are we asking Albany and Washington or whatever to come up with $1 billion+ in some kind of funding to avoid a fare hike, or is there going to be a combination?
Just to be specific about it, in 2023, that gap number is $600 million, and then in the years after, it's about $1 billion too. So yes, we would like, and again, we don't want to be prescriptive, but we want everybody in government to come together on a plan. When you fund, when we do budgets for police, fire, and sanitation, we don't say we can't do it, because they're essential services. The MTA, when we had COVID, we ran full service because we had to get people to hospitals and pharmacies and grocery stores, and it's just as essential now as it was during the middle of COVID. That's why I'm saying to government partners, work with us, figure out how to fill that gap. MTA is willing to do our part. We just don't want it all to fall on the riders, and historically, too much of the burden of operating the MTA has fallen on the riders.
But you said just a moment ago that you might have to reinstate those series of every 2 years a small fare hike. Are we still looking at that? Is that still on the table, or have you concluded that it's not a good thing to do if you're trying to get people to come back into the system?
Listen, it's not one or the other. Listen, since we last had our last fare hike in 2019, inflation's gone up by 16%. We were going up 2% a year, which was pretty moderate, and folks seem to be comfortable with that. I don't want to say that we would never have another fare increase. In fact, that's what killed the subway system back in the 1940s. But we shouldn't be having a massive fare hike that puts more burden on working and middle-class New Yorkers. That's why we're looking to our partners in those
So I guess it depends on what the word massive means.
Yeah.
Because I know that when Tom DiNapoli, the controller of the state, did a report recently, he said that you might have to raise it as much as 79 cents per person per fare. I don't think you're talking about anything like that.
To the contrary, what we're saying is we don't want to do that. If you had to fill the whole budget gap, what DiNapoli said, and DiNapoli validated all the numbers we've been talking about for a year. What DiNapoli said was, the controller said, was that if we needed to fill the whole budget gap with fare hikes, it would be 75 cents or more. That's exactly what we don't want to do. If we're going to have a fare hike, a very moderate fare hike, but there needs to be more aid and more of a solution from other quarters of government.
So getting back to the financial situation, well, do you think there are going to have to be any service cuts?
That's the other thing we're trying to avoid. You hear it in my voice. The idea of cutting service when New Yorkers are trying to get back to work in their normal lives seems nuts to me. There are a lot of people who believe we should actually increase service. Now, service has been pretty good. We have customer satisfaction rates on the commuter rails that have never been achieved before. We have high customer satisfaction, even despite all the publicity about the crime problem on the subways and on buses. We're shooting to make it even higher. So our riders are voting with their feet. They want to come back, and what they don't need is less frequent service. That'll drive them away.
So are there other ways to raise money? For example, selling the naming rights to subways or selling ads, something where you could bring in money that doesn't cost...
Listen, all those ideas are legitimate. Everybody always... there's always a magic bullet out there.
Is there
the amounts of money
bullet
that some of these ideas, and I'm respectful, we'll talk about any of them, generate are not going to address a $2 billion budget deficit. We need to talk about real answers that attack in the hundreds of millions, not in the hundreds of thousands.
So do you think that the fear that some people express about riding the subways is real or imagined?
It's not one or the other. First of all, we had a really bad month with some super high-profile, upsetting, terrible crimes. That's real. So crime was up, compared to 2021, and it's still up year to date compared to 21. It's still up 33%. But the trend since Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams stepped to the podium and added 1,200 cops a day is very positive. Crime in November was down 13%.
Except felonious assaults were up 20%.
Listen, there's no question. One of the things you heard from Deputy Mayor William Zeisman before, there's no question that there is more conflict in the public spaces in New York than there used to be. One of the reasons that the mayor is right to say we have to do something about severely mentally ill people who are struggling in the public space is there is a lot of stuff going on that is bad for them, but also is making the system feel less safe. And we have to get those folks indoors, and it will have a benefit in terms of making the system feel more safe as there's fewer acts of disorder and there's less stuff going on that's upsetting to people.
But see, it seems to a lot of people that almost every day there's something that happens on the subway that's upsetting. For example, on Friday today, as we tape this show, a 40-year-old woman who was on the number 2 train was some kind of acidic liquid was thrown in her face, and she had to be by somebody unprovoked and had to be taken to an emergency room to a burn unit. Okay. So how do you feel about that? And how do you, I mean, number one, how do you feel about the incident? Yeah. But secondly, what do you say to people that the subway's safe when there's another incident?
Well, listen, first of all, for that woman, you have to, first of all, I don't know about what the circumstances of that episode, but what I do know is, one, you got to feel for anybody who went through that. Two, everybody who's committing crimes on the subway, Marcia, they're all getting arrested because of the camera system that we have in the subways. The cameras we're now putting on the trains as well. So we have a really high arrest record. But in addition to what we feel for individuals who are impacted, broadly speaking, we have 2 to 7 crimes a day on the subway system. Our population of people who ride the subway is more than the city of Los Angeles population. They would be thrilled with 2 to 7 crimes, major crimes a day. So let's keep it a little bit in perspective, even as we attack everything that needs to be attacked to make the subway safer.
Well, that's all the time we have for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming network, CBS News New York.